video. Like I can work on the same 3 seconds for like a week and it'd still be fine. The end product usually is different from what I imagined when I started. You know, you probably removed backgrounds for one photo. Imagine doing that for several seconds, and each second is at least 24 to 30 frames.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the KDigitals podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by Kenson, who is a VFX artist. You're based down in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Very cool. So you're right in the heart of all creative kind of.
Yeah, a little outside of LA proper, but pretty close. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, the point of the KDigitals podcast, Kenson, as I mentioned earlier, is to really dive into artists, their process, and kind of their origin story. I guess one of the main things I want to ask is, when you're introducing yourself to other people, do you say, "Hi, I'm a visual effects artist," or how would you kind of define yourself?
Yeah, I generally do say I'm a VFX artist. It kind of depends on the person in the industry. Some people don't know, or like I go into more detail or less detail depending. Sometimes I just say I do video. If they don't know what VFX is. Sometimes if they're VFX artists, then I'll go into more specific, like, oh, I do motion graphics, or I animate, or I do compositing. So it just depends on kind of who I'm talking to. But otherwise, yeah, I generally start with either VFX or kind of post-production video. Yeah.
And how did you get into all that, I guess, in the first place? I don't know if that's how far back it goes, but
I'm trying to think. Well, I've always been kind of interested in like animation and video. I think I remember like in second grade, this was before, back then when there was not all this available technology, and we still had VCRs and with actual like large tapes, right? And I remember my dad was into photography, and for this school project, I saw this stop motion animation somewhere. I forget what it was, probably on TV or something. And we decided to remake, or not remake, but like make a stop motion kind of animation thing with like a cassette recorder. So we like did it frame by frame with a VCR. It was huge. And I don't know why he had it. He just like shooting videos, I guess. And I did that for like a second grade project. And then I continued doing more video stuff once the technology was available, like around high school. Like when Adobe was usable at that point. And then just kept going. It was more of a side, like a hobby thing. So whenever I had free time, I would just go and like make stuff, like edit. So it was always like a hobby or something. And then I think when I was in college, I got connected to Wong Productions and realized, and talking to them and stuff, it's like, oh, you can actually do this for a living. And there are Asian, creators and filmmakers that are doing this now more and more so than before. So that was where I jumped into more of the industry, was I kept in touch with them after their tour and started working for them for a couple of years before doing my own thing. And that was what changed it from being just a hobby to like, oh, I can actually do this, for a living. Yeah.
So when you say like do your own thing, like, or is it something where like you're kind of like I guess not a freelancer, but like a single artist people come to work, or are you still working like with other folks?
It's a mix. I'm doing a mix. That's why it's a little hard to balance. So I have some corporate commercial stuff, and then some collaborations with other artists. So it's kind of like it's not just totally just work, commercial work. It's split between like personal ideas and projects that I'm interested in, and more just like very standard boring stuff kind of mix, because that pays, so that's a compromise.
Yeah. So then so when I was going through like your Instagram, like you done stuff with like Meg Turney and Lonely Island and Funimation. Like is that what you all consider like your commercial work, or is that also like your
No, most of them are collabs. The Lonely Island thing was I had a couple shots through Mike Diva, who also came from YouTube originally, and so there's a mix of stuff on there. It's mostly personal stuff or like collaborations with brands, um, but a lot of the commercial corporate stuff is actually really dull, and I don't showcase that. I do show people if companies are looking for a specific type of work, but it's very boring. To be honest. So I never, because I always get the work that I get is from mostly from the personal stuff that I do, more so than like the corporate stuff that I do.
Yeah.
So
So then what's like, I guess, where does the standard of like, this is boring, this is fun? Like, does it have to be something like anime related or something like you personally are into, or can like you take a sneaker from Nike and like make it fun?
I do a mix of both. I so there was a point in time where like a crossroads where it's like, do I want to do music or do I want to do like video and something visual?
Okay.
And I for both of those things, you kind of have to sit at the computer and either look or listen to a piece or like a couple seconds like over and over again. And I realized I can't do that with music. I can't listen to that for like days on end without becoming really fatigued. But I can do that with video. Like I can work on the same 3 seconds for like a week and it'd still be fine. So out of that that specific kind of uh, I don't know what the word is. For that reason, I guess I decided to like do video. So I do try to find ways to make it fun, but sometimes for the corporate commercial stuff, I realize like I just need to get it done is probably the best way. Sometimes I try
Yeah.
to put too many new things or like try to make something that's really boring, something interesting for me, and I find that that just makes it worse sometimes.
Mhm.
As in like I'm spending all this time into something that doesn't need to be, I guess. I'd rather spend that creative energy on something that I'm very invested in and
Mhm.
very interested in. Because before I would take every project as like, oh, I want to find a new angle or try to make it into something really creative and interesting, but it's not productive at the end. And I end up with this piece that I'm not that proud of, that I
Mhm.
spent all this time on. So it's like at this point, I realize like there's an amount of balance between all those aspects. You know?
Yeah, I can relate. 'Cause I think there's times where like you're thinking, okay, I gotta, if I don't experiment, I'll never get better. So this is my
Yeah.
opportunity to experiment. But the queue is piling up and it's been overdue. Let me just ship it and
Yeah. So I'll limit how much I experiment. I definitely don't want to experiment on client projects, but there's always something like I could always find something new, you know. It doesn't have to be the entire project has to be new. It's just like one angle of it kind of adds some problem into the mix to solve or something to make it a little bit more interesting than it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how do you get client work? Like is it something where you're like in the DMs all day emailing people, or is it all kind of word of mouth? People come to you?
It's been all word of mouth. I think I had a couple projects out there, and then working with Wong. Um, I've never had to really go look for a job. I mean, I do submit things here and there, but for the most part, it's always by referral.
Mhm.
Either someone refers to me, or I work with someone before it comes back. Like
Mhm.
so, yeah, I feel like that's been pretty lucky, but then it's also kind of unstable, as in like I never know what's gonna come.
Also true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like might be there tomorrow, might not be, and then I'll have to think about that. It's
yeah,
like
so I have to compensate for that, which is a little difficult sometimes. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. So then I guess because animation VFX that's a thing. Like, would you say you have like a distinct style? Like, I guess how would you define like your style versus like another animator?
Style. I think I don't really have. I don't feel like I've got a really distinct or defined style. It kind of changes. I think people looking at it will see more aspects of it. Like, oh, you tend to use these kind of colors, or you tend to do this kind of like kind of emotion. I don't know how to explain it in layman's terms, but I'm still experimenting and trying to kind of define that style, but it's a mix of for me it's more of like the end product usually is different from what I imagined when I started, or like I don't have a clear vision in mind when I start, and I just kind of mold it as it goes along. So everything kind of changes a lot for
Yeah,
me. I'm that type of artist. Yeah.
I feel it. Yeah, it's one of the things where like you try to have a plan to it, and then the process kind of becomes its own process. And like, oh yeah, well,
Yeah. I
this.
kind of embrace that. It's enjoyable, and that's the way I work creatively. Some people have very clear visions, and I'm not one of those people. But
Mhm.
for specific things, sometimes I will, and when I do, I'll like definitely go for it because it's so rare.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. I want to pull it back a bit because you mentioned like you could spend a week on a 3 second like part of a clip.
Hmm.
Is that like normal? Like, how long does it take you to like?
Well, it depends. If you're doing something that's frame by frame, um, or you're just doing grunt work like cutting things out. When you green screen, or like when you have the rotoscope. I
Mhm.
mean, imagine you've probably removed backgrounds for one photo.
Mhm.
Imagine doing that for several seconds, and each second is at least 24 to 30 frames. That's 30 pictures, 24 pictures. So 3 seconds is times how many
Yeah.
that you have to remove the background from.
Is there? I guess do you have a part of your process that like makes that part efficient, or is it really just like you? If you try to speed any part, there's gonna be one frame that's a little.
It just depends on what they need, and the amount of quality they need. Like I can definitely spend and really go into each frame, or I can just you know there's a lot of factors. It depends on the motion, depends on the final output and the quality and how they shoot it.
Mhm.
But for that, or you can, I guess you can outsource it to like India or something where they have a lot of people to do that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
my
The tools are definitely making it a lot easier than it is, at least for stuff that doesn't need like super refined work. A lot of the tools nowadays are definitely a lot easier than it was back then, where there was no option besides cutting it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on your Instagram, you have this
Mhm.
piece for like Nico Robin with One Piece, where it's like
Yeah.
things. Like how long
Oh
like,
gosh.
from like conception, or like the time you opened up Adobe to when you posted it? Like how long did that?
That was my experimental piece.
Oh,
That
okay.
would be an experimental piece. I was like, I'm gonna learn new software, I'm gonna learn new techniques, I'm gonna try some ideas that I had in mind. So I ended up using like 5 to 7 new pieces of software that I didn't use before. I didn't need to, but it was more of like a learning experimental piece. I think I spent almost a year
Oh,
on it,
that,
on and off.
yeah.
Um, I mean, like it wasn't like I was, sitting there working on it 24 hours
Yeah.
for a year. That's ridiculous. I think if I condensed it, it was still at least like several weeks of
Yeah.
work, just because there was the time to take to learn some of the new software or programming and stuff. Um, there's a lot of new things on that one. So that's why those 6-12 seconds took so long.
Damn. I can see why people would pay you for that too. It's also like if it takes that long, dude, there's got to be a lot of.
Well, I wouldn't use that for like, I wouldn't charge someone for that. That's ridiculous, I
Yeah.
think. But for something like experimental, so like, oh, I don't know how long I'm gonna take on it, probably a year, and you'd have to pay me a salary to produce this 6 second thing.
Yeah.
Like that's a little crazy.
Yeah.
So I was able to use all those techniques that I learned through that and apply it to other jobs. So
Mhm.
that was kind of needed, and it was like a semi-creative outlet. I mean, the characters and the stories and the designs are all, from an existing IP, but
Mhm.
to put that together and make that come to life was a great process itself.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Mm.
So then, I guess how is it different? How is going through like that more? I guess I would say like realistic look to like
Mhm.
the pixel art you do.
The pixel art was a vestige of, or it came from like high school when I was also I was doing so many things. I wanted to make games and
Mhm.
um, I was in these like indie gaming groups, like both like programming and drawing art and
Mhm.
stuff. And that was not a I don't know. Pixel art is a dying kind of art, so there was no kind of future in it to
Okay.
go into it full time. So that was more of again another hobby, another artistic hobby. But I
Yeah.
had friends in that group that we used to make stuff together, and they ended up, you know, actually making a couple of games, indie games that were really popular. Um, so instead of actually, because that also takes a couple of years investment to make one game, if you're a seasoned team like programmers and artists,
Mhm.
they took 10 years to make their first game because they were learning everything as they were going and
Yeah.
restarting over and over again. Um, sorry, I'm trying to. Oh, I was gonna say was instead of working towards that industry, I decided to like, oh, I'll just use my pixel art and make that into a music video, which was the music video that made for Go.
Mhm.
And I don't have that on. Oh, I guess I had like a screenshot or two on here, but it's pretty old. So that was like my first piece, like finished piece from start to end, original everything except for the music, which was music from my friend. Uh, and that brought me a little bit more attention to other gigs and work related. So that was like a show piece I can show. It was like
Mhm.
even though I had the technical skills, I had nothing that was my own to show for it, and that was like the first one that'd be like, hey, I made this from beginning to end.
Mm.
This is what I can do.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. So
yeah.
then, like, how long have you been doing like not like the high school stuff, but like when you really started to get seriously, how long have you been kind of at this?
Um, well, even in high school, I took a couple of jobs
Oh,
for around the high school administration. Like I made a couple of videos. I was terrible at it as a job,
yeah.
obviously. It was coming from a very artistic mindset. Um, but I think working for, well, so it's been over a decade. It's been
Mhm.
almost 13, maybe 13 years
Mhm.
of actually um, of taking jobs related to compositing, VFX.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, damn. So you've been really been just sticking to it. See, that's what I'm trying to get right now. I'm barely starting. It's only okay. I got
Wait, how long have you started?
well, it's like photography stuff. Probably been
Yeah.
doing for like same thing. Like probably targeting jobs when I was like younger, but probably
Mhm.
like 8 years ish. But it isn't until like a year and a half ago, I was like, no, maybe I should actually invest in new equipment and actually try to get clients and like really try at this. Before I what I thought was trying was like
Mhm.
now on the weekend, maybe on Instagram. It's like, yeah,
Okay.
that doesn't count. Right. I could get clients, but it wasn't like there's definitely a lot more people that were taking a lot more seriously that I realized, oh, the bar was over here when I thought it was down here. You
I
know?
see.
So one question I wanted to ask,
Mhm.
so where does the name recognition come from on your Instagram?
So it's also very convoluted. So my first name, so Kenson is my middle name. I use Kenson because it's representative of it's my legal middle name. It's based off my Chinese name, which is Gengsan in Cantonese.
Hmm.
So it's romanized as Kenson. Originally, it would be Kingson, but my mom was like, that's too high and mighty, so they used Kenson, which is more British, I think. The only if you go to Hong Kong or the UK, there's definitely more Kensons. I don't see that many Kensons over here. But my first name is Derek. So recognition came from I had several nicknames. I think Rico was one of my nicknames. So I took that and paired it with like ignition.
Hmm.
because it was obscure enough where no social media domain names were taken. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna. Couldn't think of any names. So I just went for that, and that's why it was that. Nobody knows how to pronounce it. Nobody knows what it means.
Yeah.
It's very strange, but I just used it because it was like I don't want to think about it anymore.
Names are always the funnest thing. Yeah, 'cause I saw it and I was like, oh, that's a name. But you go by Kenson. Maybe I should ask him. I thought it was
Yeah,
recognition, and then you just changed the
that's
I.
what everybody thinks. I'm like, oh no, I feel like that's too arrogant of me. I don't mind it. I'm like, that's a nice offset, but that definitely wasn't the intent,
Yeah.
to be recognized or anything like that, in that name at least. So it was definitely, it was Rico, Riko, and then paired with something that made it obscure enough to purchase a domain name at the time.
Yeah, I like KDigitals, like what I have right now, was something I just made back in high school because I needed something. It was like a
Mhm.
longer story to like it was a combo for the friend of mine. And
Yeah,
well, I already been doing this. People know me. I guess I can't change it now. Whatever, wrong with it.
yeah.
So,
So
to kind of like hard left it a bit. So,
okay.
what is the Potato Fighters?
Potato Fighters was also another name that I came up with my previous housemates for a social media handle that wasn't taken.
Okay.
Again, that was like, it was going to be either an umbrella brand for a collective or just something that I didn't want to go if I didn't want to use my name because Recognition has my name in there. So
Mm-hmm.
something that was more generic and much easier to remember.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really developed that as a brand at all, just because things coming left and right. And then I was gonna do something this year, but then with the virus and the pandemic, it's a little difficult. So I'm kind of that's just something I'm saving for now. But I think in the future, it's just an easy name that I could use for like a company name or something that's easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's where it's at right now. So it's just kind of stagnant at the moment.
Yeah, like it developed and it's like, well, quick pause. So it's
Yeah,
supposed to be like something between like a bunch of other art, like your own little like ASAP mobs, but
yeah, just like a brand that's easier to remember than my social media handle.
yeah.
That I could do something that's more generic and then include more people, kind of to play with,
Mm-hmm.
as a brand name.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I know I'm reaching my 20-minute limit, but I
Mhm.
guess the one thing I want to ask is like it looks like you've worked with everything or you worked on things from like, Overwatch to we talked about Lonely Island, to you work at McTurney. You've been doing it for 13 years. I don't know how many different softwares you know that probably everyone else is like just good at one.
Uh-huh.
I guess through all of that, I guess what are some good lessons you would tell to another artist or even just a VFX artist like, hey, work on this. This is going to save you so much that you
Oof.
like.
Hmm. Um, wow, there's a lot.
Uh,
I feel like I learned so much because I was not doing it right or I was not doing efficiently, and I'm still not, for several years. It took me so long just to like figure out rates and I still haven't like taxes, but I haven't quite figured out, like talking to people, which I'm terrible at, but kind of made make do. I think it's let me think. Network. Okay, I guess basic two things would be to have something that you're really proud of to show. A lot of people can do a lot of things, but they when you ask them to show something, they don't have anything specific. So it's good to work on one showpiece at least. That's how I started. I feel like, um, but that's not an efficient process go, but you need at least one to get started. The second is to network. I think that's very important. So to go out and actually talk to people, go to events. If especially if people don't go to film school, which I didn't go to film school. I think film school is a great opportunity to network, but I don't think you necessarily need it to do this industry. So if you're looking for connections and stuff, um, you'd have to make it, um, by yourself. versus getting the network that you get from your professors or classes and stuff like that. That's the only thing I would recommend for film school, is if you need that. Otherwise, yeah, it's getting every opportunity to build meaningful connections, not just like, work, work, work. But everybody here kind of understands that in the LA mentality. Just putting yourself out there. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially if confidence is not as an issue, or a lot of people deal with the whole imposter syndrome, which I dealt with for a long time.
It never goes away.
It never goes away. It's just I've gotten people that how should I say it? I guess for me it's like the people who really like my work are my friends. They're just saying that because they don't know. And then the next step would be like, oh, they're in the industry, but they're just saying that to be nice. But there's actually people I look up to that I have role models and stuff, and they've given good feedback on my work and good constructive criticism. So at that point, I'm like, okay, even if I don't quite believe in my own work, sometimes there's enough people who do, and I believe those people know what they're saying. So I guess I'm at least going in the right direction. But I think some way to have that confidence and to kind of be sure about what you can provide and where you are artistically even really helps kind of pave that roadmap of where you're trying to hit to.
Okay. Yeah, because then if you're talking to those kind of people, you start to understand, like, see things differently, more objectively, and it kind of provides a roadmap for you to like walk to
where to improve, and where where what to go, and be confident about the rates that you offer, and to grow, I guess, because I came from YouTube, so that, and then going to the commercial world I'm still in mix of both, but it's like I think, yeah, just meeting a lot of people, getting the right kind of feedback and the right kind of support is really meaningful for either artists or for work, just in general. Yeah,
for sure. No, I appreciate that. Damn, I know I have to run, but we got to do a follow-up interview. I feel there's a lot more to that. There's
okay.
Unpack that at some point.
Sure.
For sure. Well, cool, Kenson. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. Where can people follow you and learn more about you at?
My convoluted social media handle, Recognition, and all my social media is that name. So you can find me on pretty much anything. Even things that I'm not active on, I'll probably have that taken. Except for my domain name. I accidentally forgot to renew it, so it's gone forever. But I'd never had anything on a website before either, so it's mostly I mostly it's all on Instagram and YouTube. Yeah, so
for sure. We'll link that in the bio for YouTube, but the Self-Found website, which might not have that, it'll probably have it. I'll have it now after this conversation, for sure.
On your website, or?
Oh yeah, my website.
Okay, I was like, my website doesn't work. Okay, cool.
Cool. Well, hey, Kenson, thank you so much, man. I will give you back your weekend, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.